Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Crist, two guys above me, Mickey Plumley and Frank Fear. We appreciate you two guys being here with me, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in to what we think is going to be a great show tonight. We're thrilled to have our guest, as we always are, but sometimes they're extra special. And I think this one's an extra special one. But we want to ask you to like and subscribe. And share on YouTube. That helps us keep doing this. Helps us out in a lot of ways. So we appreciate it if you'll take a minute just to click on that. Don't necessarily have to watch, but at least give us a like and subscribe. Guys, it's kind of nice to come in after a win, and makes it a lot easier to get on here and enjoy ourselves and talk about the Mountaineer football program. But it's always better when there is a victory behind it. And I know. But before we bring our guests on, Frank, I thought we would just briefly talk about how we felt about the game Saturday. Won't go into great depth because we have some graphics we'll put up later on, talk about it toward the end of the show. So won't spend a lot of time on it. But Frank, what were your thoughts after Saturday?
Well, as they say, a win is a win, and boy, we needed it badly. And we also needed that bye week this week, and we get ready to go to Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is playing good ball. Satterfield Field has that team playing well, and so but we needed the bye week. A lot of injuries, and of course, the big question everyone's asking is who's going to be the quarterback starter over in Cincinnati a week from Saturday.
Yep, been the topic of discussion all week. I've been listening to the call-in shows, and that's what everybody is talking about. Mickey, what's your take on it?
Good to get to win. I tell you, get back to 500 here at 4-4, and now we can point toward the future and hopefully win out and equal last year's record, get to another good bowl game. It was just a great offensive performance, particularly. Nico really stepped up. Got it done.
He did. Yep, played well, and in order to have win 5 in a row, you got to start with number 1. So that was it.
Right.
Let's get the other ones now. Tonight, our guest on here, Frank and Mickey, both. I know you've seen this guy play. You've seen highlights, of course. What a phenomenal athlete, quarterback he was at WVU. Of course, we're talking about collegiate Hall of Famer, West Virginia Hall of Famer, Major Harris, and folks my age. Just definitely remember him playing, and I'm telling you what a football player he was. So we are thrilled to have Major on with us tonight, and we have to say up front we have a little bit of a technical issue getting him on the visual part of this. So we're going to change it up a little bit. Frank's going to talk to Major through the phone, and we're going to listen and then throw in our comments as we go through. So Frank, I'm going to toss it to you and let you get started with Major.
Very good. Thanks, Greg. I'll tell you, to have Major Harris with us under any circumstance is fantastic. And Major, let me just say, we appreciate your taking the time to be with us tonight. Well, Major, you can't see this, unfortunately, but we're showing on the screen right now. We pulled together some videos of your play at WVU. One, that great run in the 1988 Penn State game, broken play, that still in the annals is one of the top 10 plays in Mountaineer history. And then we have a series of passing plays that you made over the years. And I think one of the things that's still amazing to me is the strength of that arm and the ability to be able to basically pull up and throw that ball 50, 60 yards on a dime. I mean, there are football players and there are football players. But as it relates to what you did at West Virginia, and it's not just what you did at West Virginia, but it's just 1 in a million. I mean, you and Pat White, 2 in a million, and that you're both Mountaineers is fantastic. After all these years, what are your thoughts? If you had to boil it down to what it was like back then, what would be the way you would describe it?
on my career, and it's wild. It's like when people mention different things like the Penn State game, the run, and different games, it's almost like when I envision, it's like highlights. You know what I mean? It's not like it's like I consider in that game because it's been over what 20, 30 years. Kids that's in school now wasn't even born when I was down there playing, and it almost seemed like it's like a video. You know what I mean? It's like I mean, I understand it and I understand the moments. I understand different things that happened, but it almost seemed like it was something that was in the past that it's almost like I had amnesia, and when somebody bring it up, then, you know what I mean? I get a better grasp of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm gonna use a word here that that some people may say, well, okay, why are you using that word? I'm a great believer that there's not just one kind of intelligence. There are multiple intelligence, and the word brilliance comes to mind. The brilliance of being able to take a situation, and what's amazing about so many fields is that you can think it through and decide, not in slow motion, but it's not immediate. But what you were able to do was to take a look at a situation and in a split second decide what to do and to be effective in doing it. And that's just flat out brilliance. And the other thing that struck me, and I'd like you to talk about this, the thing that I would say about those teams that you played on, the surrounding cast you had of brothers who were very much like you, both on offense and defense. And it made it possible, when you think about the Band of Brothers concept, when you think about it, where you guys were pushing for a national championship, the fact that you clicked so well together made it possible for you to achieve excellence in that brilliance. Talk a bit about the guys on the team and the contributions they made.
Well, when I look back on it, to start with, I think you always say practice make perfect. I think when I look back on just the week going into a game, how we practice, have scout team, watching film, so it almost makes the game easy because you prepare well for the game. And then it definitely helped when you got a lot of great players on your team. You know what I mean? Because as the opponent look at y'all team, they say, well, we got to stop this, we got to stop this. And as they continue to go down the list of what they got to stop, then they realize, man, this is going to be hard to do because we have so many great players on our team. So they might take one element of our game out or, stop that. But, we had great receivers, great running back. And then, the one year that we played for the national championship, we had senior veteran linemen. All of them was fifth-year seniors. And people don't realize that's big because you might go up against a team that got a freshman. He might be 19 years old. Here it is. We got really grown men on our, starting offensive line. And that's big, that experience and everything. So I just think that one year that we went undefeated, we just had the perfect team. We, at every position, we had a great player, I felt.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. There's no question about it. And that's what made it so damn exciting. I mean, we would anticipate every single game. And what's interesting is, even though they were all outstanding players, they meshed together so well. Good coaching, good game plans, good execution, good in-game adjustments against a tough schedule. And you can't see it, unfortunately, but we got a graphic up now that's laying out your stats. Rushed for 2,100 net yards, passed for nearly 5,200 yards, total of 60 touchdowns. It's just amazing. Most rushes, you rushed 24 times against Oklahoma State in the bowl game, 4 passing TDs against Pitt. In one game, that 88 game, and we all remember that, those of us who were alive, you as a single player, Major, outgained the entire Penn State team by 10 yards. 301 292. I mean, it's almost surreal. Those numbers they seem more fictional than real. And the other thing that all Mountaineers can be proud of, and I know you are too, there are very, very, very few Mountaineers over the decades that are a member of the WVU Sports Hall of Fame. You were inducted in 1999. The National Collegiate Sports Hall of Fame, you were inducted in 2009, and your number was retired 2001. I was going to go back before the show, and I forgot, to be honest, how many others have all three, but it can't be more than 3 or 4 or 5. I know that. This is probably going to be a foolish question, but did you ever think when you were coming out of high school, that those kinds of accolades would follow you?
No. It's funny when I think back on my career. You always think like, well, it's gonna be the next guy. You know what I mean? It's almost like there's always somebody else that accomplish different things. It's never you never picture yourself like that. Then when, in a sense, that it kind of hits you, so to speak, then you like, hold on. This ain't, it's like, so it ain't surreal. You know what I mean? This ain't real. You know what I mean? I must be dreaming or something like that. I just with everything, you know what I mean? As far as, growing up in Pittsburgh, going to West Virginia, playing for the national championship. These are things that you might cross your mind, but you don't think that, you know what I mean, you actually play for the national championship. You don't actually think you're going to be up for the Heisman Trophy. You know what I mean? So it's just things that probably go through your mind, but you don't think that you're going to accomplish that. You know what I mean? You just out there playing, having fun. And then I guess once your career is over with and look back on it, you like say, dang, we did play for a national championship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's something that you don't expect to happen to you. It's almost like, I kind of compare it to like Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory. You know what I mean? When they, you know what I mean? You don't think once you open up the candy bar that you're going to get one of those, golden tickets. So
that's right.
It's kind of like that.
I love that response. That's fantastic. Fans are asking questions, Major, and Timothy Green, who's a retired coal miner from West Virginia, asked the question, what did you have an injury that you considered to be your worst injury? And if so, why was it the worst?
Well, the one, really, my worst injury was the one when we played for the national championship when I separated my shoulder. Now, I had other minor injuries, and I could play through them, but I kind of compare the injury when I had in the national champ when I separated my shoulder. I felt when I played like in cruise control. I didn't really have to hit the gas, just go out there and play. But once I hurt my shoulder, now I felt like I'm playing, now I got to hit the gas and hit the brakes. You know what I mean? I wasn't playing, cruise control, basically. You know what I mean? I had to, it was a different type of feel and game for me where I had to think more. You know what I mean? I got to think, well, okay, I'm running towards the sideline. I don't want to fall on my left shoulder. Things like that. So I would have to say, yeah, that was probably the worst injury that I had throughout my career, knock on wood, was that.
Yeah, it's that game that what could have been, what would have been, but again, getting there was so critical, and that's never going to go away. Now, we have a colleague here, Mark Parsons. I think you may know him from Nashville, Tennessee, and he's asking the question, can you still do the Mountaineer rap?
It's funny. Alboy Mays, he called me really last year, and I guess he started a podcast. He down in Florida, and he was saying, "Man, we got to do a remix." So yeah, I guess he started his podcast off. I guess he started off with the rap song. You know what I mean? And it's kind of picking up steam a little bit, down in Florida. But he basically, I still kind of remember most of it. It's funny. Tony Carini was really the one behind that. You know what I mean? To be honest.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How about that? Yeah, Tony's a great guy. Major, one of the things we always like to talk with, the theme of our show is then and now. We don't just talk about the current Mountaineers, but what we want to do, and this is really something we feel strongly about. Mickey Plumley, Greg Crist, and myself, and that is every single show we want to have a football alum on to talk about the then, because we're basically positioned on the shoulders of other people, and you're certainly one of those. Well, and related to that, obviously football today is very, very different. The game may not be that different, but the circumstances and the business side of the game, my God, when you think about it the way it was when you were playing in the mid late 80s and the way it is now. And we always like to ask the question, your thoughts about the then and the now in relationship to the money available to players, the circumstances of the game, the media involvement, everything that we see today that, a lot of it was there before, but not to the magnitude it is now. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, when you add the money part into the game now, I don't know if the love for the game is the same now as it was back then. And what I mean by that, back then when we played, say if he broke his hand, he might get taken up, still play. Nowadays, with the money part, a guy break his hand, let me sit out 2 weeks. So I think the love of the game is different, now than it was back then. Because guys would definitely play through injuries. Ain't no question about that. Like I played through, like I said, in the affair, I played through a separated shoulder. So yeah, I think it's different now because of the money part of it. And I kind of compare it to like ESPN watching the poker games. When you got a lot of the big shots playing poker, they would go all in. You know what I mean? If they lose, then they just get ready for next week, on ESPN, another event. So I think it's a little bit different now than it was back then.
Yeah. That's a really good way of expressing it. The thing that one of the other things that was so great about the days back then, and I'm speaking personally, but I know that Greg and Mickey feel the same way. We miss regional football. We miss Eastern football. It's so difficult for fans to travel. How many could make it out to Arizona last week for the game or to go to Ames, etc. But how many of us would, get in a car or go up to Pitt or go to Virginia Tech or go to Boston College, Syracuse, and play those Eastern rivals? And, a lot of us are hoping that when everything shakes out of this, that there's going to be another reorganization in college football. I'm speaking, let me just say personally, another reorganization that will have us go back to what I would refer to a more sane environment where the rivalries are in place and we're playing regional teams again and reorganize that way rather than, the Big Ten now has Oregon and Washington and USC. You may not feel the same way because there's a lot of excitement, when, for example, when, if USC comes to Columbus and plays Ohio State, you hardly ever would see that during the regular season. But your thoughts about the way it was back then in the Big East and the way it is now, where you're playing teams that really you don't have a lot of connections or affinity to?
Well, yeah, I kind of like it the old way because it basically ties in, like high school football around here in Pittsburgh. Like you hear about a lot of different players, and then here it is. They might go to Penn State. You go to West Virginia. Some of them go to Pitt. You know what I mean? And you play against some of these guys. Whereas now, you know what I mean? If a guy, come down, to school down West Virginia, now he's pushed to where he's out playing against guys he probably never heard of, never played against. You know what I mean? Whereas you got guys that at Pitt, they probably played against guys from Penn State, played against from West Virginia. But now, like I said, they're not facing them guys no more. They're facing guys from out in Chicago, out in LA, and out in Oklahoma. So it's definitely different. It's definitely a different type of football. And then, like I said, the whole thing of driving to a game, you know what I mean? Traveling up to Penn State, 2 or 3 hour drive. Traveling to Pitt, 1 hour drive. You know what I mean? Now, you got to catch flights to go to Arizona. If you're going to drive, you probably got to leave probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I think the game has changed. I I look at it now as more business now, whereas before it was love or tradition and backyard brawl and playing Penn State like never beat Penn State, did we beat them? You know what I mean? It was more of the love of the game and traditions of teams and things like that. Whereas now, I look at it, it's just big business. You know what I mean? Just big business.
Yeah, and one of the points you made, we've heard over and over again in talking to the guys that played back in the day, and that is that they often would play collegiately against guys they played in high school. Somebody growing up in Eastern Ohio, one guy, Tally, comes to West Virginia and high school opponent goes to Pitt, or someone from Western Pennsylvania. One player comes down to West Virginia and another one goes to Penn State, and they meet on the gridiron, and they have a frame of reference for that competition. You're so right. Now it just puts an emphasis on film study even more so, because a lot of these guys you're seeing for the first time. I mean, for example, if you're playing Texas Tech, you're likely to be playing against kids that high school players from West Texas, Central, Eastern Texas, who knows? And so that makes a big difference. Major, we really appreciated the time with you. Any final comments that you want to say to our audience? Anything about WVU football, the state of the game, your thoughts? The floor is yours.
I just like to say, let's go Mountaineers. I think that with the whole thing of being in the Big 12, it kind of put a little damper on the spirit of tradition and things like that. Because as an older person that played in the '80s, I want to see us playing Penn State, Pitt. Yeah. I even want to see us playing Syracuse. I want to see it. You know what I mean? Because that's what I remember. You know what I mean? But now it's an adjustment period. We play in different schools, even though I don't mind playing Oklahoma State because, we played them in the bowl game. So it's an adjustment period, I guess, for the older people. But the younger people, it's business as usual for them. So I just like to say, let's go Mountaineers and let's get some more wins.
Well, Major, go ahead. Yep.
Hey, Frank, I know Major can't hear me. Maybe you can paraphrase this for him. He spoke about playing Oklahoma State out in the Sun Bowl. I actually went to that game. Me and a couple of buddies flew out, watched the game, had a blast. And I had Major on my radio show, and I would like for you to remind him of this. I had him on my radio show, and I've already asked him this question, and I know what his answer is, but I want to ask him again, see if maybe he's changed his mind just a little bit. WVU goes down, and we score a touchdown with basically no time left on the clock. And we went for 2 for the win. They ran a pass play and incomplete, and we lost the game by a point. And I asked Major on the radio show that night why we didn't call this play. I said, get him in the huddle and say, Coach Nealon says, okay, Major, we need a 2-pointer right here. Go get it, buddy. So I said he had 24 rushes against Oklahoma State. We needed 25. We would have won the game. But he swears that it was a good play call. He just messed it up.
You probably couldn't hear that, Major, but Greg was asking a long question that he said he asked you on his show a couple years ago about the end of that Oklahoma State bowl game when you needed a 2-point conversion. He just said, why didn't Nealon just take you aside and say, just go out and get it, Major. You can do it.
You know what was wild about that play when I think back on it and watching film afterward? It was a play where we brought a guy in motion and, he goes straight to the flat. And looking at it on film, after the game, he was open. But in a sense, I was kind of looking at it, well, if I don't know if it was going to be for sure. So at the point that he was open, and I think it was more of a lack of experience from my part. You know what I mean? I didn't really trust that he was going to be open, so I was going to try to, make something happen. You know what I mean? But I think as I grew as a quarterback, then I would trust things like that more, because when you look at it, when you inexperienced, I don't know if it's going to be there. You even rolling out thinking like that, but it's there. But being that the inexperience that you have, sometimes it can hurt you until you grow and get that experience. And really, that was one play that basically that happened with me.
Well, that's a great answer because it shows you that there's a thing called natural ability, and in your case, supernatural ability. But there's also growing into the game. It's you learn your way into everything in life, and I think I take from that if that had come later, you would have trusted that player in the flat. Again, Major, thanks so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. This has been certainly a thrill for us, and I know for our audience, and we hope to have you back again. Next time, we're going to work it out so there aren't technical difficulties, I'll tell you.
Okay, definitely. I enjoyed it. Definitely.
You take care, Major. Bye-bye.
All right.
All right, Frank. I'm still not accepting it. Major could have got us 2 points right there. Everybody in the place said he's just going to run around the end. He's going to get it. He got back to pass, and we're like, no.
Yeah, I tell you.
Never
He's
forget on my
yeah.
radio show when I asked him, Matt, he's like, no. He said, we had a good play called. He said, I just missed him. I missed him. It's my fault. You know, and I'm like, all right, I'm not accepting that, but whatever you say.
Yeah. You know, and getting ready for this show, didn't know I'd be carrying the interview by myself, but I looked at a video where they had Major and Pat White in the same video, and I came away from that saying to myself, I don't believe there's no other college football program that have had 2 players of that caliber. I mean, it takes your breath away. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I just don't. And, you know, we always appreciate guys like Major taking the time, Mickey, because they got so many things they're doing to take their time. And we have a little cumbersome platform here, and he had trouble getting in. So, but your thoughts about the interview?
Well, it's a great interview. I have so much respect for him, not only as an athlete, but, you know, as a person. And he, you know, as I think back to that 89 national championship game, I had been gone from WVU for 20 years. I was on the 69 Peach Bowl team, and I had just moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and just encountered our alumni chapter down here. We had a couple of those people on last week's show, or week before last, and they actually rented a movie theater, and we rented out the entire theater and had that game closed circuit piped in to the big screen, and the movie theater was filled to the brim. We must have had 500 people in the theater watching that game. And just, I mean, all our hearts sank in that very first series when, you know, you could tell he had shoulder problems in that very first series. And then it's just such a shame because he's such a great player. And you get so frustrated as a player because you want to perform to the best of your abilities and you're out there doing everything you can. And yet sometimes you have physical limitations that just prevent you from doing that. You know, Major, as I recall, was the first true dual threat quarterback that I remember watching after I graduated, wasn't he? I don't recall anybody that was truly a dual threat as much as he was prior to him. Do you guys?
No, you rarely, if ever, saw one. And I've always said, you know, he was way ahead of his time. You know, had he been coming along now, he'd have been talk of the town. Everybody would have wanted him in the NFL. Back then, NFL teams didn't like running quarterbacks because they afraid they get hurt, so they never had one, and they just dropped back and threw it. And he was so far ahead of his time. You know, he would have been in my opinion, a great running back as well as a quarterback. He was just that kind of an athlete, and you know, it's kind of lot like when Pat White was quarterbacking. You know, we often went to the games and would say, you know, wonder how much we'll win by it. We didn't have any thoughts of losing. We always thought we were going to win, and if we didn't score on a possession, it was a big disappointment because you know, those guys put up points, and he was just. I mean, if you needed 5 yards, he'd get 5 yards. If you needed a long pass, he could throw the ball. He's just such a great athlete. And, you know, again, a lot like Pat White. He was a little bit, I think, physically bigger and stronger than Pat White, but pretty much the same type. And yeah, I don't remember, but of course, nobody of his abilities do I remember. But I don't remember any pass right now.
So,
Quarterback.
when I think about that, guys, think of the impact that Major Harris had on the game of college football when he hit the scene with that dual threat capabilities that he had, forcing defensive coordinators to come up with brand new schemes on how do you play a guy that's not just purely a drop back passer, but can hurt you on the run just as much as he can with his arm. I mean, it changed the whole environment of the way the defensive game was played. Just as when Rich Rod came in with the West Coast offense that he installed with all those guys, that changed a lot of the way that defensive coaches reacted to offensive schemes as well. But I remember Major not only for his talent, but the impact that he had with his talent that's lasted until today. Because now, if you're drafting somebody out of high school, you want that dual threat over just a pure passer.
Yeah. What do you think about Timothy's question there, guys? I vote yes.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the question was posed to Coach Nealon one time. If he hadn't got hurt, did he think we'd win? He said absolutely. He said we felt like we were better than them, but Major was our main cog, and when he got hurt, it just threw everything in a swirl. And but I think he said one time that he felt like they would have won the game because they were better. So yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Yeah, it was the first series. It was the first series of the game. I mean, if it happened maybe late in the game, it might have been different. I mean, but it happened right at the beginning, our first possession.
Right at the beginning.
Yep, and just went downhill from there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just to me, it's just amazing. And again, we're all history buffs, and you played for the Mountaineers, Mickey, but I go back in time and I can think of guys like Major that you will put up against any other program in terms of you think of someone like you just the defenders of the 1950s and Jim Braxton of your team. By the way, Jim is going to go into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame this Saturday. We heard from his niece Jamie Braxton Brandt, and West Turner, and we're so excited. And Bo Orlando is going into that hall who played on that team with Major back in the late '80s. That's Here are about 10 new inductees in the Pennsylvania Hall of Fame this Saturday over in Philadelphia, and 2 are Mountaineers. And you got to, again, these are the things, and this is going to be an unpaid political announcement. There's so many naysayers out there who are just shooting shit. And what I'm saying is there's a lot to be proud of in being a Mountaineer over the years. And again, like anything else, are you going to be dragged down by the naysayers? Or are you going to do what you can do to help this team, this program, this school be the best it can be? And that I can't help but get revved up when you hear a Major Harris, even after all these years. And I got a photo I got to show you that our friend Mike Dunlap sent me, because it's a great photo. If I can find it, here it is. We had Kevin White on the show the other day. Kevin White was basically going to be. He was for 3 years. He was basically a practice player, and then became the starting quarterback and won 2 of the biggest games in Mountaineer history back to back, Boston College and Penn State. And of course, he had a great career as a judge. And here he is, he's living out in Arizona. And here's a picture of Kevin at last Saturday's game. Now, tell me, you're going to want this photo in your living room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that a great photo?
Look at that.
Wow.
That actually during the game or shortly thereafter, Kevin sent that to Mike. Now, there are 2 things about that. There's the stadium, but I don't think if I did something wrong, I'd want to go in front of Judge White.
That looked pretty rough, don't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked pretty hard there, didn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I'm going to get that
That's a nice
blown
picture.
up and put it in my study. That's a
Get
and
him to
here's
sign it for you.
here's a guy totally different, right? Totally different from Major, a manager of the game, played within himself, and yet brought again great, terrific honor to WVU and Mountaineer football. It's just amazing.
And Frank, one of the Mickey, one of the things I think when looking back on that, that we'll never see again, probably ever. One is another Major Harris, but the other one is 5 fifth-year seniors on the offensive line. And a lot of people have forgotten that typically during Coach Needham's time, we would go 2-3 years and we would be, 6-5, 5-6, whatever. But every 3 or so years, 4 years, would be really good. And we always had linemen that they developed and they got better and better. And by the time they were seniors and then fifth-year seniors, they were unbelievable. And that offensive line that played in front of Major was fantastic. And, like I said, 5 fifth-year seniors there, we may never experience that again, because well, you know why. I don't have to say why, but you know why. So it's kind of sad in a way when you look at that and you watch that team play. Man, they were good. Like you said, there's a lot of other players on there besides Major that were really, really great football players. But you just wonder if we'll see that again. And I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it'll ever happen again where you have 5 fifth-year seniors.
Yeah. Guys, go ahead, Mickey. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking about that, Greg. And in one respect, I agree with you with the transfer portal. But from another viewpoint, a lot of people are saying on the street that Ohio State has the best roster that money can buy. And as NIL continues, and, for example, the Texas Longhorns pay their offensive linemen $50,000. And this was a couple of years ago. It's probably gone up now, but 2 years ago, they were paying their offensive linemen $50,000 a piece as long as they stayed at the University of Texas. So, you may see some people stay for the financial incentive, which is totally the wrong reason. You look at the Utah Utes, the story on them? They gave each of their players, every player on the team got a Ford F-150 leased truck with the insurance paid on it, but it was 1-year leases. And if you decided to go to another school, of course, your lease of the truck was over and you lose the truck. So my problem with that, I don't like it at all. But you got to admit the fact that financial incentive, a lot of players today, that's the only reason why they're there.
Yeah.
We had Rick Trickett last week that said, if a player asks him about money in the first part of the interview, he just gets up and walks off. And boy, I'd sure like to see things like that again.
Yeah, the business.
Yeah, I think Nick Saban mentioned that, and part of the reason why he quit was
that's why he left. That's why he left. No question about it.
Yeah.
First thing they would ask was how much money, and he just couldn't take it. But I mean, it's the world right now. It's the college football world, and until it's reined in, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah. Hey guys, along with the enthusiasm of having a player like Major, who means so much to us and to the program, we lost 2 good ones this week, and they were friends of yours. Why don't we take a few minutes? Lonnie Warwick and Ron Pobolish. Which one do you want to start with? And we'll do a little testimony to each of these guys.
Either one's fine with me.
Well, why don't we start with Ron? Let me throw this up.
Okay.
And why don't you talk a bit about who Ron was, and you played with him, and Ron passed away from liver disease. Mickey, and I'll turn it to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a moment in memoriam here for Pope, as we affectionately called him. You know, I had the pleasure and the honor of playing with him from 66 through 69. And not only just a fantastic player, just a great human being, and the legacy that he has left behind. Of course, you know, first of all, let me just address his playing career. You know, he played in the defensive secondary, and as such, did something that very few defensive coordinators allow today. Pope called all the defensive plays, playing in the defensive secondary. He's a very intelligent player, very fast player. He wasn't very big, as I recall, in his college days. He was maybe 5'9", 175 pounds, if that. But boy, he could really hit you with an impact. And what an intelligent, great player. He knew, it's kind of like Beanie Bishop. He knew where to be when the ball was going to be thrown to get that interception. And there he is in the Peach Bowl, where he had a pick in that game as well. And boy, he just did a wonderful job playing for the Mountaineers. But he took his love of the game back to the Ohio Valley area that he came from. And he continued as a coach at the high school level for more than 40 years. And he had such an impact. And there he is with that pick in the Peach Bowl game. He had such an impact after he graduated from WVU, going back to his hometown, his home area, coaching at several high schools for 40 years, and has such a positive influence on so many young men, and such an impact on the assistant coaches that played and worked for him. He followed their careers no matter where they went, was always there for them. You know, I'll never forget he and Terry Snively were just the best of buddies. And getting to see those guys at our 50-year reunion was wonderful back in 2019. And then getting to see him again at the Moundsville book signing that you have pictures of up on the screen right now. I'm just glad that I had the opportunity to spend some time with Pope and his wife, Lori, a year ago in Moundsville. And such a shame. You know, we talked about him and his illness the last couple of shows. Unfortunately, he passed away with his entire family surrounding him. And wherever you are tonight, Pope, I know you're still rooting for the Mountaineers. I know you're still concerned about the welfare of your family and all the people that you're associated with that you had such an impact on. And there's going to be a remembrance, a celebration of life. The date's yet to be determined, but I look forward to that event because he truly was, you know, a life to be celebrated if there ever was one. And Frank, thank you again personally for the article that you published in your sports column, which pretty much says it all.
Well, I appreciate that. And for those of to just put the legend in place there, there's obviously a picture of Ron in his playing days in the upper left. And then he's there moving to the right with Ken Juszkiewicz, the great field goal kicker, will always be known as Juszkiewicz 15, Pitt 0, back in 1967. Yeah. And then the picture, Ron's in the Ohio Valley College Football Hall of Fame, 40-year career. And that's a photo of him during his coaching days. He retired about 10 years ago. And then Mickey mentioned the book signing, and we had a photo op together. And they're the dynamic duo, Terry Snively. And one of the things I mentioned in the article I wrote, which I hadn't really appreciated, I had forgotten actually, he was an incredible special teams player as well as a defensive back, and would catch passes out of the backfield and run. And I remember Mickey and I were talking today on one game, West Virginia was in trouble, and Ron took a punt 80 yards and turned the game around. And so, and you know, 5'7", maybe 170, not a big guy, but an incredible athlete. And we just condolences to the family. He a character guy. There's no question. And as we turn to Lonnie Warwick, both of you guys knew Lonnie. Turn to you, Greg. There are pictures of you, each of you, with Lonnie. Your thoughts about, and then after Greg, chime in too, Mickey, about the great Lonnie Warwick, who died this week.
Well, he was, not only a great football player, but he was a good human being, and he was he's given back so much to the Mount Hope community and to anybody that asked. In fact, and I can remember, and I know a lot of people can, but numerous things that he did over the years to help people, but with nobody knowing it. And just a few of us would know about some of the things he did. I got to know him personally when I was teaching and coaching at Mount Hope. He would always help with anything we were doing, fundraisers, that sort of thing, golf tournaments. He was always involved and always helped us. He would ask me if he could get his grandson into the gym, and I would stay and let his grandson in the gym. And he always was so appreciative of that. And like I said, was willing to do anything to help anybody with anything. He was just a good human being. So much fun to talk to. I had some of the greatest stories and some of the best stories you'll hear. And Darren run a replay of a show that I did where I interviewed him. Some of those stories you'll hear about on that show. Had him on a couple of times, and it was just a blast. But yeah, he was something else. And when I was reading some things about him yesterday, went on the internet, was looking up some stuff and reading, and saw several comments from different players of that era that played with him and knew him, and they all said the same thing. He was one of the baddest men you ever faced in a football game. He was the meanest guy in the world in a football game, but he was one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. And he had a great sense of humor and was always cutting up and creating, humor on the team and with the younger players and that sort of thing. But they all said basically the same thing. They talked about him being just a good old country boy, and that's what he was. And you could go anytime, ask him for anything, and he would help you. He was just that kind of a person. But what a football player! You remember, he's probably the least known of the Purple People Eaters. People my age and older. I remember the Minnesota Vikings with a Hall of Fame defensive line and linebackers. Lonnie was probably the least known of the Purple People Eaters defense, but probably one of the most successful. He led the Vikings in tackles several years, even interceptions. He had 4 or 5 interceptions one particular year. Of course, played in Super Bowl IV. Just a heck of a football player that really, I don't think, it maybe was overlooked a little bit because of some of the people that he played with. You had, some of those defensive linemen, Wilbur Marshall, can't remember, Jim Marshall, can't remember all their names, but Hall of Fame guys. And he was just a good human being. And Mickey, I know you know him and feel the same way.
In fact, that photo was just taken a few weeks ago, right, Mick?
Yeah, at our Jubilee days, we have in Mount Hope, instead of having annual class high school reunions, we just bring all the classes back once a year. And I got to see Lonnie, it was September the 17th. I went to his house driving into Mount Hope. And but let me go back to the beginning of the story to start with. I first knew of him and met him in 1959. Just a little while ago. I was 11 years old, and Lonnie was 17. And Mount Hope High School was playing Mullins High School for the state championship at Woodrow Wilson's Field over in Beckley. Greg, you may remember this game.
Oh yeah, yep.
Mount Hope and Mullins both went into that game undefeated. And both of them had set records that year for the fewest number of points scored against the defense. Well, I'll never forget the way Lonnie played in that game. Here I am, 11 years old, and I'm just getting interested in football. I'm thinking about, I'm listening to Jack Fleming on a transistor radio broadcasting on Saturday afternoons, the Mountaineer games. I'm watching Lonnie. I'm seeing him down on the streets of Mount Hope, and he's always, talking to me and giving me advice about, hey, kid, you thinking about playing football? And here's what it takes. And he, Mount Hope and Mullins had quite a battle that day. I'll never forget it. They played to a 0-0 tie, and both teams finished either 9-0-1 or 10-0-1. I forget which one, but what a battle that was. And I go from then through my high school years. Of course, he went on to East Tennessee to go to college, but he'd come back home on his off weekends. And again, he took an interest in me, and he was always motivating me to be my best. I really got interested in football my sophomore year in high school. I didn't really play in high school until I was a junior. And Lonnie's the guy that talked me into doing it. And we just stayed in touch for so many years. I'd see him every time I went back for Jubilee days. As you said, Greg, the man would do anything for you. He was always looking to help people out.
Yep.
About 11 years ago, we were just starting our nonprofit organization in Mount Hope, the Mountain of Hope organization, where we raise funds for scholarships for athletes, high school athletes, and academic scholarships for kids to go on to college. And we had our first golf tournament over at Glade Springs about 12 years ago. And we were looking for people to donate things for a silent auction. And Lonnie knew of that. He called me up one day. Of course, I'm commuting back and forth between Atlanta and Mount Hope. And he called me up one day. He said, what can I do to help in your fundraising for these scholarships that you're working on? And I said, well, if you have any, mementos from your days with the Vikings, if you could autograph that, we could auction that thing off and probably bring a pretty good penny. I heard him say on your show the other night, Greg, I watched it last night, that one of his cards was worth $2.50.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, he showed up at our golf tournament as our celebrity guest, and we had a banquet after the tournament. And he had gotten the 4 defensive linemen, the Purple People Eaters, to sign this panoramic poster that was about 4 feet long or maybe 2 feet high. And each one of those guys had autographed it, and Lonnie autographed it. And we auctioned that thing off for $2,500, which we were able to raise just from his one. And that's just, one area in which he helped us out. I would make it a habit every time I would go back to Mount Hope. He was always in his latter years sitting out on his front porch, and everybody in the world that knew him would stop by and shoot the breeze with him, talk to him. Just the friendliest guy in the world. Now here's a guy, played in the pros for 10 years. Admittedly, like Alex Karras and a number of Joe Cap and a number of players from that era, didn't make a whole lot of money, but he could have gone anywhere in the United States and done anything after his NFL career, and he chose to come home to Mount Hope and help his hometown, which, the coal mining business was drying up, and he was aware of that, and he was trying to do everything within his power to breathe life back into the town. And he continued to do that over such a long period of time. I just have, so much respect for him, and really feel like I lost a good friend with both. He and Poe passed on the same day.
Yeah.
Which is just
it's devastating.
Not a good day for me personally. But let me end on a story about him, and I'll pass on to you. Have I got time for a quick story here, Frank?
Yeah.
How are we doing on time? Okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
I remember talking to him, and when he told the story on your show, Greg, about he was working out in Arizona on the railroad or out west somewhere.
Great story.
He got a call from the Vikings to come and try out, to make the team. And they, I heard him say on your show, which is what reminded me of this story, about they asked him, or he asked them, if I sign a contract, how much are you going to pay me? Do I get a bonus? They said, hell no, you're not getting any bonus. He said, you get the right to come and compete for a spot on this team. Well, Bud Grant was the head coach for the Vikings at the time. And when the preseason came down to the final week, they had to make their final 52-player cut to get to the final 52 players on the Viking squad. And they were down to 53 guys. And Bud Grant, according to Lonnie, and I believe every word of it, according to Lonnie, Bud Grant called Lonnie and another guy who was an All-American center at Ohio State into his office. And he said, men, I got to make a choice here. Today's the last day. He said, I got 53 players left on the squad. I can only keep 52. He said, I've been trying to decide, how I can make this decision because both of you are just excellent ball players. And with that, Bud reached underneath his desk and he pulled out a football. And he threw it over to the center from Ohio State. And Bud had, I should have prefaced this with, he had a glass window overlooking the Vikings stadium field. And he looked at Lonnie and this guy from Ohio State. He said, I want you two to take that football down on the 50-yard line. I'm going to be watching you from up here in my coach's office through this window. Whomever brings that football back to me gets a 52nd spot. I said, Lonnie, what'd you do? He said, well, that big lumbering guy, he said, Mickey, he weighed about 300 pounds. He was playing center. And he said, I was playing at about 260, 255. He said he was a lumbering ox, a big kid out of Idaho or somewhere, corn-fed, stronger than an ox. He said, I followed him down there on the field. And as soon as he turned around and looked at me, I reared back and went, bam! He said, I knocked him out. I knocked him out cold. I grabbed that football and I ran back up to Bud Grant's office and I got the last spot. True story about Lonnie Ward.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that a bit. I've heard, I could tell you tons of stories. Billy Martin stories and all. Him and Billy Martin were really good friends. He's told some great stories. Yeah. I actually took some videos of him last time I was at his house. I videoed him telling some of these stories, and man, they're great. I'll keep those. Oh, they're great. A couple of things real quick here. I know you mentioned his card. So funny because back in the mid-90s when I was at Mount Hope, we had a golf tournament every year to raise money for my basketball team. He always participated. He would putt only. That's what he said. I'm a putter. He said, I'll drink beer and putts. That's what he did all day. Well, my son, my oldest son, was probably 11, 12 years old at that time. He didn't, of course, know who Lonnie was, but I introduced him, and Lonnie said, well, come on, you come with me. So Sydney drove the cart. He let him drive that cart. Well, like I said, he wasn't 10, 11, 12 years old. So he come back in, and I got a picture of him and Sydney in the golf cart together. And I got it autographed. And anyway, he come back in, he was complaining. He said, he run right over my damn feet twice. Well, he's only 10, 11 years old. He probably never drove anything in his life. But anyway, I told him in that interview privately, he was talking about his ball card only being worth a couple bucks. I said, man, I got ripped off because when I got that picture of my son, I got on the internet and I found his playing card, his card, and I bought it there in some auction or eBay or something. I don't remember what it was, but I paid $6.50 for it. So I told him, I said, man, I got ripped off. I said, that thing's only worth $2. I paid $6.50. He took a hit on that one. And then the other thing I remember was so funny, when they played in the Super Bowl, we were down in New Orleans. And he said back then, when the games ended, the playoffs and the championship, he said, when those games ended, they immediately came into your locker room and gave you your paycheck. So he said that was the worst thing could have happened because he said they brought that check. He said the winners got $15,000, losers got $7,500. He said we got $7,500. They come in and gave me a check. And one of his buddies, and I forget who he said it was, but he said we left out of there with those two $7,500 checks. He said we didn't make it back to Minnesota for about a week. And he said, we spent every penny in New Orleans. He said, every penny of it.
One last thing I do want to mention, Frank, at the Jubilee ceremony on the 17th of September, they did honor him by the old football stadium in my hometown of Mount Hope is, I believe this to be true, and Greg, you correct me if I'm wrong. It's the only concrete poured bleacher stadium in the state of West Virginia with walls built all the way around it. It's set down like in a bowl, Frank, and it had like a castle, 6-foot high wall all the way around it at the top of the ridge of the bowl. And several years ago, Gene Spadaro, who was quite an influential coach at Mount Hope for years and years and years, passed away. So they had named the field, even though the stadium is closed now, they shut down the high school and they bus the kids over to Oak Hill now. But they named the field the Gene Spadaro Field. So on the 17th at the Jubilee Days, they now call it the Lonnie Warwick Stadium. And it's much as with Bobby Bowden and I forget the name of the stadium, but they call it was a Doak Walker, perhaps. Yeah. But anyway, so they have the Gene Spadaro Field within the Lonnie Warwick Stadium now, which, he'll go down in the annals of history as the most famous person ever to come out of Mount Hope, West Virginia.
Yep,
what a guy.
Sure.
He'll be sorely missed, man. I'm already thinking, next September when I go up for Jubilee Days, I won't be able to stop by his house and see him again, but I'll see him again one day. We'll meet on the other side.
There you go. Yeah, I'm like you. Every time you go through, I got to know him well enough, and I would stop and visit, and it's going to be sad going by. He's got that statue or thing out in the front yard out with the Vikings on it, really a neat looking thing. And I always stopped there and visited with him, and he was so proud. He would always took you down to the basement because that's where he had all these memorabilia at. Yeah. And my gosh, he had a whole room full of things down there, and he'd just show you around. He was really proud of all that. It was fun to go down and look at that stuff. It was entertaining. He was entertaining. So he'll be missed for sure.
He and Ron published the world lost two fine people this week.
Yep. Well, that's one of the things we want to do is we always want to remember, but we also want to look forward and put together some information about the Arizona game. And for a while there, it looked like it was going to be a repeat of the Pitt game, but it didn't come to be. But we won't spend a lot of time on this, guys. We've got about 15 minutes left, but one of the things that I found very interesting about looking at this that gave me some, I think all of us hope, is that when they came back and scored in the second quarter there, Arizona, on a 75-yard, 14-play drive, we countered with a 75-yard, 8-play drive and took almost 5 minutes off the clock. But Arizona, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. 80% passing. They just don't have a running game. They only had 78 yards rushing. And what do you guys think? If you look under the West Virginia column, under the top offensive grades, bottom offensive grades, top defensive grades, bottom defensive grades, anything there surprise you at all in terms of who graded out best and a little bit iffy either side of the ball?
Go ahead, Mick.
Well, go ahead, Greg.
Well, I was just going to say a couple of things. One was our fourth down efficiency was incredible. I think we were 4 for 4, and even scored on a couple of the fourth down plays, which was that's awesome right there. Offensively, I just thought we played pretty well offensively. I thought Nico controlled the game pretty well. Our offense was fine. But then we look at our defense and some of their grades. It's kind of tough when you're offense does well, but then you look at some of the lower grades there, and they're offensive guys. That may be a good sign. I don't know, but yeah, I thought our offense did fine. I just still, our secondary. I don't know. It's just 10 players under 65. Lathan, Carrico, French spells. Our defense is still a little sketchy, and I think that might be part of the reason why we saw what happened this week. Part of the reason, not all the reason, but part of the reason. Just seemed to be so much confusion in that defensive backfield. I know even in the press conference, Neil Brown mentioned that we were in a Tampa 2, whatever that is, with two safeties. We got in that situation a couple of times. It ended up with our linebacker guarding
their best receiver.
Their best receiver. Who was 6-7 inches taller and obviously faster. And we ended up 2 times with him guarding him. One of them ended up in a touchdown. So that right there tells you that either the kids are lining up in the wrong places, or whoever was directing them was getting them in the wrong defenses. Because you got to know you can't guard him with a linebacker, and we did that a couple times, and that was mentioned in the press conference. So defensive backfield. I mean, you hope, and we've been saying it all year. Maybe during this bye week here, where we can work some things out back there, and play a little bit better on the defensive side. But I thought our offense looked good, and the defense still a work in progress.
Yeah, he said in his press conference on Monday, you guys may have seen it too, is that he used the word patchwork for that back end. And he said that the guys that they're trying a lot of players back there, and that's obvious, but they're going to be scrimmaging this week. The guys that are not playing regularly would have 2 scrimmages. They're still looking for a combo. And he went out of his way to mention Zay Jennings, which I thought we would see a little bit more of. He's had such a good spring game. And Israel Boyce on the back end. And but he did say, he said, I think our front is playing well. And I thought I'd put this up too, so you didn't see this, guys. I just put this up today. This is the composite grades for the first eight games, top and bottom, a little bit less messy. This one just cleaner. The top in order, both on the offense and the defensive side. And, it's that bottom defense that, I never thought we'd see a Cutter and Lathan in that group, or Hollis and Redwood. But, Garnes may not play next week. And Sean Martin also is surprising. And even with all the criticism, Green is still up there for the first 8 games. These are taking all the games into consideration. And but another thing that I before I move on, just comments about that, guys.
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple of comments, just offensively and defensively. First, on the offensive side, I thought the play calling was much improved last week by the coaching staff. I mean, 2 plays in particular, I think were they were turning points in the game. The first one was the fake field goal that we ran in, for a touchdown. And then that critical 3rd and 7 call toward the end of the game where we were going to have to give the ball back to them. That was just an excellent play call. The way they ran that receiver underneath, there was just no way, as long as they threw and caught the ball the way they're supposed to, that play was going to be stopped. So, I mean, those 2 play calls I particularly enjoyed. The other thing I was really impressed with, and I was concerned about going in, was the fact that Wyatt was not playing at left tackle, and we started a redshirt freshman in his place. I think the kid's name is Johnson. I'm not sure. I think it's Johnson. Whatever his name. I zeroed in on him most of the game because I like watching the offensive line play. And that kid played a spectacular game. Yeah. I mean, we didn't lose a step almost. And hopefully with the bye week, Wyatt will be back fully healed up and ready to go. Defensively, still struggling, but as was announced, we have a new defensive coordinator now, and we probably have a new approach to how the defense is going to be playing going forward. And they've got 2 weeks to shore things up, and we got 4 left. So let's go get them.
Yeah.
Frank, I was going to mention to you, Frank. I got thinking about this after we were on the air on the post game show, and we picked our game ball winners for the week. The next day, I was thinking about it, and I thought about the offensive lineman that Mickey mentioned. I don't know his name either, but can't remember it. But I know he was a freshman, and you didn't see any breakdowns there. I didn't watch him specifically a whole lot, but there were no sacks or breakups on his side of the ball. I think one time he had a little trouble, but other than that, he played a great game. And I thought about him as maybe a game ball winner after we'd already decided and picked ours. But I thought it was probably pivotal, him coming in from Milam like that and playing so well.
Yeah, I mean, it's they always say it's next man up, and there's no question about that, but they got to come in and perform. Something else we haven't talked about in a while, it just dawned on me. So I got on Rivals today. Sometimes what happens is, when there's a lot of swirl around a program, it affects your recruiting. And so I said, okay, let's see. Well, it's 6 weeks away from signing, so we're close to signing. And what I found was the Mountaineers at least have 21 commitments. They're not all inked yet, but 21 commitments. And guess where West Virginia is ranked in the Big 12? I didn't expect this. Number 3 in the Big 12.
I was going to say
all
4.
right.
Number
Good.
3. TCU is number 1. Baylor is number 2. And TCU is number 25 in the country. Baylor is number 31 in the country. And right now, West Virginia on Rivals is number 35 in the country. So when you think about the Iowa States, the Kansas States, Colorado's at the bottom, but they're transactional. They're doing their bidding through the portal. But the point is that that a 35 national ranking, third in the conference, given everything that's going on with the swirl, with billboards, all this kind of stuff going on, is not bad at all. I think it gives us renewed hope for that. And Cincinnati is going to be as we were saying earlier, is going to be a tough go. There's no, I don't think there's any question. And I think Kelly's right here. Jeff Kuntz is a good one of your colleagues, football colleagues. Pobesic put out today a whole bunch of data, Mickey. You saw it on Kuntz's career, and he's impressive.
Impressive. Very impressive.
So, we'll see. They're going to need it with Cincinnati. Small stadium, good home crowd, a lot of noise. But because of proximity, there should be a lot of Mountaineers there. And game is noon. It's a noon game finally, no late game. So that should be we'll look forward to breaking that down next week.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see that one with the defense. I'm just curious, at this stage of the game, how much impact can he have? Will he come in there and, for lack of a better term, dumb it down a little bit, make it simple, vanilla, and see how we perform? And I feel like that might be the best move because I think we're pretty athletic back there. We're just not you're just not in the right spots. And if you dumb it down a little bit, get them in the right spots, I think he'll perform better. So I'm looking forward to seeing what a difference it makes.
Yeah. He said during his presser that he doesn't think Garnes will likely play, and he's not sure about Aubrey Burks at this point. But again, that presser was on Monday. Here we are on Wednesday. You got a long way to go. So
10 days to go.
Yeah, 10 days to go. So, well, guys, this was good.
Well, wait a minute. Hang on. Time out.
Oh, we gotta do one more thing.
Between the three of us, who won last week's game?
It's interesting, Mickey. Because we're doing the pregame and the postgame, and for those of you who don't know, I'm still struggling with COVID. I didn't have a chance to go back and look yet, so I got to do that. I don't know.
Mickey, I guarantee you, Mickey knows. He wouldn't have brought it up if he didn't know.
Did you win, man? You won?
Now, I know I hit the West Virginia score on the number. The other team, I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a
Well,
high scoring game, yeah.
I
Yeah.
had West Virginia with 31, and that's what they
Yeah.
scored.
Yeah.
I think
you-
I had the other team with 20, I believe, and they had
Yeah.
26. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were
I'll go
pretty
back.
close.
But you know, Mick, I'll look at that. But also, I forgot we got to play our little spot here for.
Yes,
Yep.
we do.
My God, we got to
Yep.
do that. And why don't you cue that up while I look for it here, and then Greg, I'll turn to
Sure.
you after that, and we'll talk about who our guest is next week, and
All right.
that'll be good.
Yep.
Yeah, Frank and I did a little talking last week, and he was kind enough to interview Ty Bullock once again about his community activities and all the work he's doing to help revitalize what he refers to as Elk City, West Virginia, the west side of Charleston, as well as other parts of the state. And Frank was nice enough to cut a little video of him talking about what he's doing and to encourage others to join in and help in that regard. And roll tape if we're ready, Frank.
Yeah, and just another comment on that is that as you can see, there's a theme here. I mean, Mickey talked about his involvement in his organization in Mount Hope, and Bob Zitelli, a good friend of ours who's been on the program, is doing this similarly in Pittsburgh with scholarships for high school kids to go to college. And on the pregame show next week, we're going to have Tanner Russell, who is very involved, a great offensive lineman for the Mountaineers, very involved in wheeling. And this is going to be Ty talking about what he's doing in Charleston. And so we're trying to connect this. This is not just football, it's life. And the connections, I think, here to me, and I know to Greg and Mickey, are very exciting. And so we talked about, obviously, Ty and his distillery. Here's Ty doing a lot of incredible work with historic preservation. Here we go.
We do over here in Elk City, and that is community redevelopment, and specifically through saving historic buildings, renovating them, and turning them into places that people can work, play, and live. Where I develop these historic buildings, and we kind of turn back the clock on these things, and people ask themselves in the community, what could this be? Why is this building empty? Couldn't this be something for the community? And so that's what we try to do. We try to help purchase those kind of buildings, flip them, and then rent them out for below market rate if possible. And to date, we've done about 20 commercial buildings. We do mixed use components. So we have apartments usually on the second and third floors. And that gives it's kind of a return to that sense of community that we believe in, and that we want to help increase and foster in our downtowns in West Virginia. And so to date, we've done just a lot of cool mom and pop shops, as some people would call them, and these are kind of like the coffee shops, the t-shirt printing places, the small restaurants, the things that have character and that give our downtowns that vibrancy that we want to see, that walkability, that unique sort of experiential aspect of visiting a town that you don't really see in necessarily in every community. So we're trying to help develop that and redevelop it back. I like the term redevelop it back into a unique place that we can call home, and gives us a sense of place here in Charleston. And we're really proud of this type of work. We want to encourage folks to come and see us, come shopping, come bring your kids down. It's a very family oriented space and community. But also, if you have some business ideas, if you're interested in hanging your own shingle, if you're interested in putting yourself out there into the entrepreneurial world, I encourage you, reach out to me. My email is always available, ty.bullock@gmail.com. That's TIGHE_BULLOCK @gmail.com. No idea is too small or big. give me a shout anytime. And I'm always interested in helping not only businesses come to this part of West Virginia, but any West Virginia business, no matter where you're at. I've worked with communities all over the state, and anything I can do to help promote entrepreneurialism and small business development, that's my life goal. And I hope to speak to somebody out there in your world soon that hears this message and wants to be a part of this.
Very nice. Very nice. Nice
Great job,
representation. Yep. He does.
Yeah.
Good job, Frank, putting that together. And yeah, you can't say enough about Ty. He does great things down there, and has been doing it for a while now. I remember back when he first started all this. And, yeah, really has done wonderful work. So we appreciate him. Appreciate all the comments here from folks. Some nice comments. Next week, again, Frank, Mickey, we got another good show, and another guy I remember very well. We will have Hall of Famer Paul Woodside on the show with us next week, and you can see their highest accuracy in school history, 80%, most consecutive field goals made, 15, longest kick made, 55. I can remember again going and watching them play, and when it was time for that field goal, the whole crowd would start chanting Woody. And, no, he was automatic, and he could nail it. He was a good kicker. Everybody loved Woody. So that'll be a lot of fun getting to talk to him. I'm looking forward to that. So, guys, another good show tonight, and I think we got a lot covered in a little bit of time we have. And but it was a good show, and I appreciate Frank, all the work you put into this. It makes it really simple for Mickey and I to show up and just yap. So we appreciate you doing all this work. Sure. We appreciate everybody out there for tuning in, and make sure you like and subscribe. And I guess Frank and I will see you next Saturday. We'll be on Wednesday before Saturday, though, won't we? So we don't.
That's right. Next Wednesday.
So I guess next Wednesday we will all three see you then. And we'll have Paul Woodside on with us. We look forward to that. We hope you will too. Have a great evening, everybody. Good night.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.